Hi food enthusiasts, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to my channel. I would love for you to comment, like, and subscribe if you find my content helpful. I'm back with a video I've been thinking of making for a while. I hope it's helpful to those of you interested in Koyudo White Canadian Squirrel brushes. Please excuse my voice, my allergies are pretty bad lately. Koyudo re-releases their limited edition brushes every once in a while, and CD Japan recently restocked the Sakura Makie Blush Brush and Powder S Brush. Unfortunately, the S Powder Brush sold out before I was able to get this video up, but I hope the Blush Brush is still available by the time this video goes live. I've included my affiliate link for the blush brush in the description box. Thank you so much if you choose to use my links. I really appreciate it. I'm surprised they're re-releasing the brushes again so soon, but that's great for those of you interested in it or love it as much as I do and want to add more to your collection. It seems like Koyudo has been re-releasing the brushes more frequently since last year, but before that, it wasn't nearly as frequent and harder to come by. I counted, and they came out with 2 sets in 2015, 3 brushes in 2016, 3 brushes in 2017, 1 brush in 2018, 4 brushes in 2019, 2 brushes in 2020, and an astounding 12 brushes in 2021. Some of the CD Japan Koyudo collaboration brushes, including the White Canadian Squirrel brushes from last November, were also restocked in December of last year. On the other hand, just because they came out with a lot last year doesn't mean you should think they'll probably release a lot more in the future. Even if that were the case, I would pick whichever one you're interested in, or both, earlier than later, since we never know when companies will stop making brushes with natural hair and switch over to synthetic. The exchange rate is also favorable to those of you who pay in USD at the moment, since the yen is currently at an all-time low against the dollar. It's the lowest it's been in 20 years. If you've watched my Holy Grail scroll video, then you know that I absolutely love the Powder S brush. I feel the same way towards it like how I feel towards this Chikoto Z11, that I could have 10 of these because they're just that amazing. I'll go over the description of White Canadian Squirrel hairs from the CD Japan website to those of you who are unfamiliar with the hair type. It says the White Canada Squirrel brush, which is not generally distributed, has a softness and a good firmness and creates a natural shine on the skin with a superb feel. The handle is made of cherry wood and makia of cherry blossom pattern expresses a sense of luxury. This small powder brush is ideal for powdering small areas of the face. Amazing for under eye powder, highlighter, contour powder, and bronzer. It provides a sheer, more controlled application of face powder. Before I get into the comparisons between old and new, I'll go over the specs, pros and cons of the hairs and brush, and why I love it so much. The hair length is 45mm and the hair thickness and ferrule measurements were provided on the listing for the old brush but not for the new one. Hair thickness is approximately 21mm and the width of the ferrule is approximately 26mm for the old one. Now on to the pros, how I adore the White Canadian Squirrel Powder S. Let me count the ways. The hairs are very soft and my old one has never felt scratchy on my sensitive skin, even as my skin has become more and more sensitive over the years. The hairs are also elastic and have good spring. They're plush, velvety, and supple. I appreciate elasticity because it doesn't make me feel like they're going to break as easily. However, I still recommend using it gently as squirrel hair is delicate. The body feels resilient, but the hair tips aren't as strong, so keep that in mind. The hairs will clump together if you use it on top of a tacky and creamy base, but it doesn't clump up nearly as badly as red, blue, and gray squirrel do, and the product residue and oils come off easier when wiped off onto a soft cloth. So in that aspect, the hair tips shouldn't break as easily as red, blue, and gray squirrel, but if you use a cloth that clings onto the hairs, then the hair tips will be prone to breaking when you wipe it. Check out my updated Fude cleaning and maintenance video if you're interested in how I currently clean and maintain my Fude. The shape and size are perfect combined with this hair type. The flat, slightly flared shape, rounded top and corners, and medium compact size feel phenomenal during use. Some hair types just work better in flat shapes such as this. Sweeping it against your skin feels incredibly pampering and the application is smooth. It's medium sized, which makes it versatile and multifunctional. You can use it for bronzer, blush, setting powder, finishing powder, and even contour and highlight if you wanted to. I think you'll like this brush if you like medium-sized powder brushes and heads with rounded tops and corners like I do. It truly embodies the Kyun word in my username. It makes me giddy and makes my heart sing with joy whenever I look at it and use it. It's compact and on the dense side straight out of the package and post-wash, but loosens up a lot after use. Here are photos of when I first got it and photos of it throughout the years after use. It doesn't feel airy even after using it and loosening up the hairs. Analogies I thought of for how it applies and smooths on my Makeup Forever HD powder is like the finish of flawless porcelain and lustrous pearls. Flawless porcelain is gorgeous and immaculate, and pearls have a beautiful sheen. It provides an even and pretty soft glowing from within effect. By definition, lustrous means reflecting light evenly and effectively without glitter or sparkle, so rest assured you won't look like a disco ball using this brush unless you use powders that already have glitter or shimmers in them. It's similar to the finish of Hourglass Diffused Light ALP when used with Gray Scroll and other scroll brushes, but I think this brush takes it up a notch because it applies my Makeup Forever powder like other brushes apply my Hourglass ALP. It's hard to beat out the finish Hourglass Diffused Light gives me, but this extraordinary brush takes my Makeup Forever HD powder, which normally looks flat on me after application, and applies it like a finishing powder. It supercharges my powder. This brush exceeded my expectations. I didn't think this highly of it when I first got it, but I completely fell head over heels for it after using it more. I've used it with Guerlain Meteorites and Hourglass ALP, and definitely prefer it with the Makeup Forever HD powder. Try it out with different powder types to see which one you like it with the most. As for cons, this may be too small for those of you who like big brushes. A brush of this size is considered a blush brush to a friend who loves big brushes. The L size would work better for those of you who prefer larger brushes then. The hair length for that one is 55 millimeters. I passed on the L when I bought my first S because it looked quite loose at the top and the hairs looked too long. Individually sold L sizes are usually rare, but CD Japan did release the L twice last year, so maybe they'll re-release it again sometime this year. This is also not a brush I use daily, but it's up to you whether or not you want to baby your nice brushes. Here are size comparisons with other brushes. Here it is compared to the Chikuhodo Z9 on the right. The Z9 was laid flat, while the White Canadian Squirrel brush on the left wasn't really laid flat for very long. Z9's a lot fluffier. Z1 on the right. The Z1 was also laid flat. Ehoro Sakura P2 on the right. Next is the Beautylish Presents Lunar New Year Ox Brush. Ox Brush is on the right. Here it is next to the Shosho Long F01. Now onto the comparisons between the old and new hair and powder S brushes. The red handle one is from CD Japan Beauty but is manufactured by Koyudo. If I remember correctly, the last CD Japan Beauty release was in 2017 when they came out with the Konayuki Christmas set in collaboration with Koyudo, so it's been a long time since they've had their own brush release. I love the affordability of the CD Japan Beauty brushes and hope they can come out with more in collaboration with Koyudo in the future. I contemplated long and hard whether or not I should get another powder S brush, and I'm so happy I did. It doesn't have the classic black ferrule and handle with the signature Koyudo Sakura Makie, but I think the longer red handle and black ferrule combination are beautiful as well. The longer red handle does make it a bit awkward to use compared to the shorter handle one though. I can use the red handle one both horizontally and vertically, while I mostly use the shorter handle one horizontally. I'll show the brushes both post-wash where they'll look more compact and after use. The old one had bronzer on it, so I washed it 3 times with different shampoos and brush cleaners to try to get it as white as possible. I used the Johnson & Johnson Liquid Baby Shampoo, Ueda Bishodo Fude Bijin Makeup Brush Shampoo, and Tsubokawa Mohitsu's Makeup Brush Cleaner Otoshigoro. I washed the new one with the red handle and Liquid Baby Shampoo. Shape-wise, they look pretty similar. Both have pinched oval frills, flat heads, and rounded tops and edges. In terms of size, post-wash and in its compact state, the brushes look about the same size. They don't fluff up that much post-wash and after one use compared to after being used more. For density, the old one is a little bit denser, but since these are handmade, each brush will vary a bit. This does make a difference though because the denser one feels firmer against the skin and has less resistance. The new one on the left flares out more when you press it against the surface because it's less dense. I prefer the denser head. That extra amount of hair makes it feel nicer as it glides across the skin. I generally prefer denser brushes over airy brushes and sparse brushes though, so it comes down to personal preference in the end. For the color difference, the new one is slightly whiter compared to the old one. As for the gradient, the old one has a very obvious gradient from dark brown on the bottom quarter or half as it moves up to the top and becomes white. It's a more even bundling for the gradient. There is also a larger ratio of dark brown hairs on the old one compared to the new one. For the new one, since the brown hairs on the bottom are mixed in with so much white, at some angles and points, like when you hold it upside down, it looks more gray than it does brown. The gradient is bundled a lot less evenly on the new one compared to the old one. The brown hairs are kind of just mixed in with the white hairs on the new one. It didn't seem like they put that much effort into making an even gradient compared to the older one. Granted, mine isn't completely even. It does look better in terms of gradation compared to the new one. My old one actually looks more even in the front, but in the back it's not that even. Here's the back. You can see that the old one on the right, it's not that even right here, but my front looks more even. I've also seen people that have even more even looking ones than mine, so it really depends on the bundling that you get. And yeah, you can tell that in the back, when I'm holding it in the back, you can see the bottom dark brown is mixed in with so much white on the new one that it looks gray compared to the old one that's just straight up brown right here. The white hairs are longer in this one compared to the old one as well. Bundling wise, since I just washed the old one with the sakuramake, it hasn't been laid flat for very long, while the red handle one has been laid flat on one side, which means I basically have one side to compare the bundling to. This is subjective, but I think the old one has a nicer taper on the sides as it moves up to the top. The new one doesn't have as much layering going on and starts a lot higher compared to the old one. In terms of the evenness of the layering, the new one is more even while the old one looks choppy in some areas. So right here it looks kind of choppy to me. I saved the best comparison for last, the softness. Keep in mind that I've had my old one since 2017, so it's been about 5 years, and with use and multiple washings, I don't think it'll be as soft as a relatively new brush anyway. I do baby my brushes though, so it's been kept in excellent condition. The new one is softer, which pleasantly surprised me. I wasn't expecting it to be softer with the quality decline in the Fude industry, but I think the batch of hair they used for these two CD Japan releases were really good. It's softer due to the fact that there's a lot more white hairs and longer white hairs. The white portion of the hair is the softer part and makes it feel more velvety compared to the old one. The more white hair and longer white hair, the better in terms of softness. Anyway, it's not a significant difference in softness, but it's enough for me to notice and rave about. In terms of application and finish, the heads have no issues fitting into powders such as the Makeup Forever HD powder, Hourglass ALP, and Guerlain Meteorites, since they're medium-sized. The application and finish are basically the same besides the denser brush picking up and depositing more product compared to the less dense new one. So the old S brush powdered over this blush right here, and it covered it pretty well. The new one covered up the middle blush right here, and didn't do such a good job at the bottom. Onto the blush brush. First, I'll show photos of around the time when I first got the brush to now, so you can see the progression of the compactness turning into loose fluffiness over time. The hair length is 36 millimeters, and there were no measurements provided for the hair thickness or ferrule width for mine. This one's been used and hasn't been washed recently, so you can see how loose the hairs are. I've also laid it flat on one side. I don't mind the looseness of the powder brushes, but I wish the blush brush stayed more compact. I can put it in a brush guard, but then I think it would have a harder time blending product. It has medium density, but the looseness, application, and blendability are probably why it never made it to my holy grail list. Maybe I just have to use it more and warm up to it like I did with the Powder S brush and Z11, both of which I was lukewarm towards initially but fell in love the more I used them. The pros are that it's soft, cute, and doesn't expand much when pressed up against the surface. My old Powder S brush and this blush brush have medium to high resistance, while my new Powder S brush is in between low to medium. It shares the same softness as the old S powder brush. Koyudo's White Canadian Squirrel hair batches are fairly consistent based off of these three brushes and playing with a friend's blush brush, which is an ultra plus in my book since it's difficult to maintain the same or near the same level of softness for natural hair fude. Cons for me at least are what I mentioned earlier: the looseness, application, and not blending blush well enough for my liking. Application-wise, it grabs mattes and golden pearl formulas better than baked formulas like Milano's latest Luminoso formulation. The one at the top is Milani's latest Luminoso formula, which is completely different from the old one, followed by ColourPop's matte formula on the left, and then the Pat McGrath Golden Pearl formula on the right. I had no issues picking up the ColourPop matte blush and the Pat McGrath Golden Pearl blush with it. It had a harder time with Milani's Luminoso, both in grabbing and depositing. It leaves a metallic sheen. Yeah, this new formulation is very metallic, but the pigment is not really there. It can pick up a lot if you swipe a few times, but it deposits the color in one area with the ColourPop Palatial Matte Blush and has a hard time blending out. It may be different for you if you have a skin type that's easier to work with this hair type like dry, but mine is combination, and I find that a lot of squirrel hair blush brushes tend to do that for me. Even when my cheeks are dry, it's weird. Since it applied blush to one spot and didn't want to blend easily, I had to put in more effort into sweeping back and forth for it to blend, which ultimately removed some of my base underneath. So this is probably a total of like 9 swipes at this point. And I also don't like how it's blending out on my arm. It's not really blending. Kind of just stuck in the initial area I applied it in the most, and also kind of like on the bottom. Here's Milani Luminoso and the ColourPop Palatial Blush. It's rare that that happens to me, so needless to say I was shocked and not happy with this combination. It worked the best with Pat McGrath's Desert Orchid Blush, which has a golden pearl finish. While it also deposited in one spot like the ColourPop blush, it was easier to blend with and I didn't have to put in as much elbow grease into sweeping back and forth. The finish was light to medium, slightly diffused, and really pretty overall. It maintained the golden pearl finish of the blush. I like it with this formula the most. Two more times. I don't think the pigment is showing up as well or vibrant on camera as it is in person. It looks more pigmented to me in person at least. Just know that the Milani Luminoso blush is very metallic and shiny. And while the blush brush does tend to subdue that metallic finish, it's still there. And yeah, it's light. Then here's the ColourPop Matte Palatial Blush, followed by Pat McGrath's Desert Orchid. And blush swatches with brushes are pretty hard for me to do. It's not as easy as eyeshadow. Eyeshadow is much easier, but hopefully this gives you a good indication or it helps you out a little bit. You might actually like the ColourPop. I think the ColourPop currently looks the best on my arm, but on my face at least, I liked the Desert Orchid the most. I like it enough to keep it as a collector's piece, but wouldn't buy another one to have as a backup. I'd say try it out if you're interested, want it for collecting purposes, or if you like loose, fluffy brushes. Here are size comparisons for the blush brush. It's a small brush. Here it is with the Canadian Squirrel Sakura Maki blush brush. The shapes are pretty different. Koyudo Red Squirrel Sakura Maki blush brush. Unfluffed up Chikuhodo Z4. Here it is with the Chikuhodo Z8. Hakuhodo B or J110 on the right. I highly recommend this hair type in particular for powder brushes and the S powder brush if you like medium-sized powder brushes. Lastly, I'll include a brief bonus section for Canadian Squirrel versus White Canadian Squirrel. Here are my Canadian Squirrel blush brush and White Canadian Squirrel blush brush. Compared to Canadian Squirrel, the white one is softer, and while it does have a random curled hair or two, it doesn't have curled tips like the Canadian Squirrel one. I prefer straight hairs in general. White Canadian Squirrel is velvety and smooth, while Canadian Squirrel is on the drier side. An example comparison would be having super silky and smooth hair using one set of shampoo and conditioner, and having dry hair using another set. Canadian Squirrel isn't as smooth or soft feeling, and I can feel the texture compared to white. They're both soft enough for sensitive skin, but my personal choice is White Canadian Squirrel. Canadian Squirrel is pretty to look at, but in terms of feeling on the face, white is so much better to me. Even though the white one is softer, it's not a huge difference like going from goat to squirrel. They both have elastic feeling hairs, but I think the hair tips on the white one are more delicate since it's softer. White Canadian Squirrel also fluffs up more than Canadian Squirrel as shown in the photos between both S brushes. Canadian Squirrel is closer to Pine Squirrel in the way that it doesn't fluff up much. I think you'll love White Canadian Squirrel if you prefer your squirrel brushes to have some fluff but don't feel airy. I prefer white over Canadian Squirrel because it's softer, but it's really just personal preference. If you like the look of Canadian Squirrel over the white one, then by all means, go ahead and try it out. I know people may prefer the look of one over the other, so it's up to you. Both hair types are rare, so if you're a Fude fanatic and collector, or you're interested in it, then don't let my opinion stop you from trying it out. You don't know what you like and dislike until you've tried it out for yourself, since everything is so subjective. I also wouldn't have known which one I liked better if I hadn't bought both and tried them out. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram. See you in my next video. Bye! ご視聴ありがとうございました. The one at the top is Milano's. It's not Milano. I keep thinking about cookies.